like to give you all some more advice for the zombie outbreak. As you know, the world's come to an end, blah 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 blah. Last time I gave you all advice on how to survive, basic fundamentals. This time round, I'm going to make it a bit more intellectual, if you will. I'm going to start off covering how to think, how to use your mind when you're out there. Now, as a lot of you know, zombies aren't exactly the smartest of things in the world. That is probably the best weapon you have over them. You can still utilise your mind. You can use foresight, judgment, every aspect of the human mind that you normally use in combat, you can use. It's very useful if you're having to run through an area, either to get away from a group of zombies or to get to a location with enough of a leeway between you and them to allow you to gain entry to a building or something without running the risk of exposure to yourself. You can utilise your mind. Now, it's all common sense, really. Running through an area, you should be looking for points of cover, unlevel terrain, anything that might cause your footing to slip, trip hazards, environmental hazards like falling electrical cables, broken water mains, that sort of stuff. Fires, cars, bodies, bloodstains, if they're fresh. Blood's actually quite slippery. You need to look out for that. Same with oil. It's using your eyes. It's taking in your entire area around you, whilst also thinking as you're moving through it. You can't stop and take in the whole world, so you do it on the fly. That'll be one of the other survivors coming back. Must have just been raiding. You do it on the fly. You have to think as you're moving. Now, it's all common sense really, but you won't have the time out there to stop and think if you're being chased. You won't have the time or the leisure to stop, think and sort of take into consideration, right, I could do this, 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 this and this. Now, sometimes you will. Sometimes you won't be exposed, you won't have been revealed to the zombies or anything else out there. So you will have time to take into consideration what there is around you. But sometimes you just won't. Now, it's times like those when you really have to think, when you're really moving as fast as you can. It's times like those that you've got to be prepared to do what is necessary. Now, it all comes down to common sense. The more people that are with you, the more you have to think about. If you're on your own, there's not as much you need to think about. It's actually relatively simple. But if you add in more people, then you add in, more risk. So it all comes down to common sense. If you know the area around you, all the better. Maps are especially useful for that. Just sort of having a look, seeing what roads lead where, alleyways, back routes, shortcuts, all that sort of stuff. It will all help, because the more you know, the better prepared you're going to be for moving through the area. Now, that will be key, especially when it comes to later survival. Thinking doesn't just extend to outside there, it also extends to like where I am now, in a relative safe haven. Keeping things where you know where they are, keeping organised, keeping your mind on top of everything around you. You have to keep yourself stable, if you know what I mean. It's all about using your mind, something that they've lost. You need to keep it sharp, sort of prepare yourself for what there is to come. Thinking on the move and thinking in advance are two very key human factors that are definitely worth learning. Now, without rambling and repeating the same points, I'm going to move on to the second topic I was going to cover today, which is stability and the marksmanship principles. Firing a weapon, most people can do. Firing a weapon well is something a lot of people can't do. Now, most of you know that's sort of the basics around a weapon, how to hold it and all this sort of stuff. I'll demonstrate to you a few bits and pieces from my rifle. Now, when you're firing, if you have it in one hand and you hold your arm out and you try and pull the trigger, you're not going to get a very accurate shot, because you've only got one point of contact with the weapon, which means your control over that weapon is very weak. When you're taking a shot at a zombie, or anything, you want to be utilising as many points of contact as you possibly can, which means you want to be in contact with the weapon in many different places. Normally you have three. You have the shoulder stock, which goes into your shoulder, and the cheek rests against this, is one of the point of contacts. Second is your hand on the trigger, and the third is on the birdcage. That's 3 points of contact that you should always have with a rifle. Those 3 points of contact allow you to perform a much more accurate battle shot. You will be able to hit the target a lot easier. The weapon is under control. There's not as much sway as there could be. Obviously, being human, the blood flowing around your body, breathing, and other factors, the rifle will still move. You will never get a dead perfect flat shot. The only time you're likely to get a dead perfect flat shot is while you're lying prone. Now, lying prone is obviously shooting when you're lying on your stomach, something that you want to try and avoid in a zombie outbreak unless you're sniping from a very long distance and you are sure the area around you is clear. That's why it's good to have a spotter. So prone is a stance that you usually tend to want to try and avoid. Some of the most common ones you're going to be taking are standing shots. Now, shooting from standing means that there's a lot more factors to take into consideration before you pull the trigger. It's all common sense things, really. The fact that there will be a slight sway, your breathing, your levels of energy, fatigue, various factors will all build into it. Now, you can increase your support on the weapon by utilising the terrain around you to add additional points of support. For example, if you've got 3 points of contact and there's a broken wall in front of you, you can prop the front of your rifle on the wall to generate a 4th point of contact. That will reduce the amount of movement on the weapon quite dramatically. It also means that you'll have a more stable position to take the firing shot from. You can also move away from it a lot faster. A few factors that are very, very important when it comes to taking shots in these situations. Trees are very, very good. You've got the branch, the trunk, and a branch, basically like an L. Think of my finger and my thumb. You place the rifle in this little groove here, and you've got 3 points of contact, a 4th here and a 5th here, which would allow a very, very accurate shot from a standing position, all things considered. So terrain is obviously something you definitely want to be thinking about when you're scoping an area or while you're in an area. Pistols and smaller weapons, you still have, well, no, you only really have 2 points of contact with a pistol, which is why they're a lot harder to be accurate with, especially on the move. However, you have less recoil, there's more control over the weapon because it's much smaller, the caliber is smaller, and obviously you've got your 2 points of contact, which will be, grab my pistol, your first hand on the actual handle itself, and the second hand which cups. You have the trigger guard, in which case your finger is across, and you have a very stable 2-hand position. That is a lot of stability for a pistol. The closer you bring it to your body, depending on your preference, may increase the stability, it may decrease it, because extending your arms has a lactic acid build-up, which means you will eventually begin to shake and you won't be able to hold the weapon steady. Same with a rifle. So while you're walking around, you don't want to have the rifle constantly in your shoulder, because it will wear you out, and you want to try and keep yourself as fresh as you possibly can. So it's useful to sort of dip the rifle, and if you're in a place like this where you're safe, practice bringing the rifle up and down, just so you know that you've got that movement ready. So when you bring it up, it's on eye level, and you put it down, you're relaxed. A few key factors that they may seem so very small, but they are very, very important when it comes to it. Now, you may think I'm rambling quite a lot, and in all fairness, I probably am. Most people that are going to watch this maybe won't even use anything that I say, but it's good to get it on tape, because there will be people out there that are going to be stuck. There's going to be zombies everywhere, and they're going to watch this and they're going to realise something that they didn't know. Now, even if you only take away one thing, one tiny, tiny little thing, and you've learnt something, and I've done what I've hoped to do. I've helped other people with their survival, which is all that matters now. So I'm going to stop going on and on and on, because I will talk forever and ever. The amount of stress and pressure that's going on at the moment. We lost a couple more people the other day, which is never good. I'd be here for a long time talking, so I'm going to call it, before any noise build-ups or anything happens. Remember to stay safe when you're out there. Watch your back, try not to travel alone. And when you're out there, on the move, think ahead of yourself. You need to keep thinking. You need to make sure you're always aware of what's around you. Stay in the game. Stay in the game and you'll stay alive. Hopefully I'll talk to you all soon. Take care of yourselves.